All right, everybody, welcome to Last Newsdesk on the Left, the final show of our first season. We made it! I am your host, Mac Paladin, and of course, the usual crew is here. Adam,
Hello.
Kevin's here,
Greetings.
Petty Fan's in the house,
Oh God, where am
and Gollix is answering his call,
I? Yes. Hello.
and of course, Twilight Winter.
With fully functioning internet still.
Yay! Yeah, we had a little bit of a problem on Monday's broadcast, and then I lost the whole thing.
Well then.
I didn't get to cover that on Fragments, but apparently our video on demand of our Overwatch play from Monday was completely lost because of a Twitch-wide glitch. And hey, that kind of rhymes. Now, there isn't necessarily a plan this week to do an extended episode or anything. I mean, we already typically run anywhere from an hour and a quarter to an hour and a half. But this week's topic is one that is definitely a long time coming. And before we get to that, Adam, why don't you bring us up to date on yourself?
As in the news or personal news? Like,
Yeah, whatever. I mean,
you just want to. Okay.
Our two shows are on two different channels, so I figured you may want to reiterate some information or whatever, like we usually do.
Yeah, I'm usually good by this point. Anyway, as far as the bombshell of a topic, I'm understanding the wording here, but so after 20 years, we are set to finally leave Afghanistan. Biden today formally announced that we will be instituting a full troop withdrawal by September 11th. Not on September 11th, by September 11th. So that means things will be completed by then.
Right. And that's a significant distinction too, because there is a lot going on. So we're not holding off till then and then starting the whole process. Wham bam, thank you, ma'am. It's a process. We are not taking the slow route out. We're not taking the quick route out. I mean.
Right. Yeah. It begins on May 1st. Should be completed by September 11th. Of course, that kind of goes against what our what the agreed to deal was, but that's the way it's going to be.
Yeah. It's also this is going to happen this time because there's been talk about doing the troop withdrawals for years upon years upon years. I think going back to the Obama era, really. Granted, Obama was never all that keen to leave Afghanistan like he was to leave Iraq. Because I think he genuinely believed that
Biden
should
and Obama,
be there.
Yeah, Biden and Obama notably butted heads over a surge in troops in Iraq, which Obama did do, but Biden was against it. So he's always been a little bit more skeptical about us being there long term in a major capacity.
Yeah, I mean, I think he said today that we were not supposed to be in a multi-generational conflict, which this has become. Like
when he voted for the Iraq War back in 2001 and the initial deployment of troops to Afghanistan, President Bush was basically trying to intimate that this whole thing would be over in a fortnight. And our troops would be home by Christmas or whatever, and which is always the lie.
They thought it would be a rerun of the original Gulf.
Hang on. Like, I want to straighten the thing here. It's not necessarily a lie. It's also they bungled the mission. Because if you remember, we were supposed to go in there to get bin Laden. But he fucking escaped. And, we couldn't find him for a good number of years.
At least a decade.
So, there was still that lingering bit, especially if we had left, before that had been accomplished, then, that would have been a completely different conversation than what we're having, really since 2011. Like, it's more a question of, why are we still there when the mission has been completed? As far as, taking care of the people who caused 9/11. As far as the Taliban's concerned, well, they're a lot more deep-rooted in the fabric of Afghanistan. Like,
unfortunately.
Yeah, it's also, we haven't been doing any fucking favors over there.
No.
Or rather, I suppose specifically our allies, who are ridiculously fucking corrupt. By the way, you want to talk about history repeating? Vietnam? Like, this has fucking happened. Like, this is one of the reasons why they turned against us in Vietnam. I know this isn't Vietnam, but, we have a history of supporting ridiculously corrupt regimes.
And back in the day, it was because they were ridiculously corrupt, but at least they were anti-communist.
Yes, exactly. Our man in South Vietnam was a dictator.
Well, he was like a fucking Catholic zealot as well.
Yes. In a society surrounded by Buddhism.
So this is why. This is why we're not exactly welcome in Afghanistan these days, because like the number one issue for Afghans is corruption. Like,
and we put in leadership and governments that are ridiculously corrupt.
Well, I mean, I'm like, the uncomfortable truth here is that if we examine too closely the reasons that we're still in Afghanistan, it's because we're still doing Christian missionary work as if it's the Third Crusade.
I don't know that specifically here.
I mean, if we want to get right down to it,
I don't think it's that specific. I think it's more. I don't think it's religion. I think it's more forcing democracy on a country that probably doesn't have the capacity for it.
Well, at this point, I think a significant quantity is probably, why are these people from way the fuck elsewhere still here trying to tell us what to do?
You have to understand history, Kevin. If you're going to invoke Vietnam and in comparison to Afghanistan, you have to understand the reason for that. Why were we against the Reds? Well, because they were anti-religion. Everything actually comes back to religion at some point or another. So I do say this somewhat tongue-in-cheek, but you have to understand the history of these conflicts. So it's not unreasonable to actually compare this to a Third Crusade, because a lot of American politics is driven by our inability as a people to separate church and state. Even though we've enshrined this doctrine in our Constitution and all that stuff.
I would certainly agree with that when it comes to the point where, we know what happens under Republican administrations,
Right. So that's kind of where I was going with it, is you really need to look down to the root cause of it. Whether you're stomping out communism or you're stomping out, and I'll use air quotes, corruption in Afghanistan or whatever.
I mean, I don't disagree with you on the concept of religion being a part of the game here. I mean, it probably is a part of the game here, but I don't think it's the big part of the game. I think the big game here isn't necessarily about religion. It's more, forcing representative Western democracy on a country that is very much tribal in nature. Like, that's the big thing here. And, in every single country, I mean, at this point we need to understand that nation building doesn't work.
I will disagree with that, because we used to be really good at nation building. Guess what? We built up Western Europe. We built up Japan. It's just we didn't go in. We didn't go in with the thought of nation building because we were led by very incompetent people at various points.
Yeah,
the Bush administration, they were fucking morons.
I will counter one other point here. Afghanistan is 99.7% Muslim.
Mm-hmm.
Pretty much every country that we've invaded in the Middle East or its adjacent neighbors has had a component of us as a, and I'll say it in quotes, Christian nation going against Muslims, because there's a very strong undercurrent in the right wing of our country that believes that as long as the country is Muslim, they will never be democratic, because it goes against their teachings.
Although there is a Christian community there is a Christian community in Iraq and everything else there. It's a notable one, but it's not. But yeah, when it comes to Afghanistan, it's not. It's very much Muslim to the point.
To put it mildly, they're marginalized. Anybody who's not Muslim is marginalized, and So the idea, there was a prevailing theory at the beginning of the first Iraq War that we weren't going to impose Western democracy on the Middle East because of Islam. Because, this is a conversation that has happened about Iran and so on and so forth, is that Iran can never be a Western democracy because of the tenets of the faith. Now, I'm not saying that's right. I'm just telling you that's the thought process behind it, and why I came to the conclusion that I did, is that this is that any continued presence there, any talk about democracy is a pretense. Because ultimately it's about, you've got these little undercurrents of, then they'll have religious freedom and freedom of choice, and it's like, well, what if they choose Islam?
That's the big thing. It's not that has sort of happened. I mean, the Taliban has been elected.
Right.
Yeah.
In many places in Afghanistan.
Yeah. So again, I'm not trying to skewer this into a weird direction, but we need to be we do need to be honest both to ourselves and to the.
It is part of the mix here. But I don't think it's.
There's not a lot of.
As big.
There's not a lot of other reasons for us to be there. We don't have any real legitimate economic concerns there, as far as it being a launching point for military bases and so on and so forth. We don't really have a dog in that fight.
Yeah.
So there's not a lot.
I suppose there's a chance of them harboring terrorists that could do harm to us, but you know what else could do that? Anywhere.
Including the United States.
Yeah.
So I mean, let's not lose sight of the pulse of the American psyche.
I really think it's more democracy than religion, to be frank. I think it was really more a case of trying to force in normal Western democracy in a country that does not have the capacity for it, and a country that is very tribalist in nature.
Well,
that's still tied in with religion stuff, though.
Right.
And I think ultimately, regardless, either way, it comes down to at some point you have to let other countries be other different countries and not the way that we want them to be, because because
I remember this same conversation happening in the right wing of my family. In regards to Iraq, is that they were, you could see the disappointment in their eyes when they elected a largely Islamic / Muslim slate to their new democratic government that we helped install there. So it's like,
but here's the thing though with Iraq though. I don't think it's more Muslim, because you were going to get that either way. It's more probably the fact that they put in a Shiite Muslim because Iraq is very much a majority Shiite country, whether we like to admit it or not. And unfortunately, when you have a Shiite government, that means it's easily susceptible to the folks next door.
There is that.
The reason why Saddam was there was to be a brutal brutal buffer against the Iranians next door, and they had a war for nearly a decade that went into a stalemate. So, but, you know...
Well, we also spent a lot of time debathing the country in the same way that we denazified Germany.
Yeah.
And the Baathists were a much more secular group of individuals. Right. I used to work with a gentleman who identified as Baathist. And so, you know, it's just... I don't know. It's the United States does not have a good history of separating our motives. We say one thing, but we actually mean another thing, and I have concerns about this. Absolutely. So I'm not trying to make this some weird, uncomfortable sticking point. I'm like, but we do need to make an honest analysis of it and say it's not purely secular.
Oh, obviously not. I mean, it's part of the mix.
And it's a larger portion of the mix than I think you may be aware.
I don't think it's that big. I mean, I'm not saying it's zero, but I don't think it's. I think forcing democracy on this country, forcing Western style democracy on this country, was the bigger thing. And maybe forcing religious choice is part of that, but they wouldn't take advantage of that, even if we did put it on them. But I think it's more the point of putting in a Western style democracy on a country that does not want it, or does not want it in a way that fits to our liking, or is one that is not susceptible to, drug-induced corruption.
Societal structure is a big issue there.
Yes.
But I think you also are still underestimating the degree to which a lot of Americans would not have accepted that it was a democracy if it was still
Muslim.
Frankly, non-Christian, but especially Muslim.
Yeah.
Oh, look. In terms of the people in this country, yes, I do believe that a good percentage of the country probably, wishes that we were more pushing in terms of the religious aspect. But that's in the country. I don't think that it was as big of a thing here. But that's only because of the stuff that we've had in public. I mean, in private, in classified situations, who knows?
You got to keep in mind that as we discussed in the pre-show, the media really hasn't been talking about this whole situation as much as we would have liked. Given how much wide coverage there was of the Vietnam conflict, even the Korean War, other similar style conflicts where we went in, whether it was for empire building or establishing democracies or whatever the hell it was we thought we were doing there, You could say that for the last 50, 60, 70 years or so, every time we've tried to go in and nation build, we've had a larger string of disappointments than successes.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, you want to get into nation building? Let's talk about South America.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And the clusterfuck of South and Central America. And the fact that
we insist that the people of insert South American country here choose their own government. No, not that one.
Right.
Although technically you could actually add Iran to that list too, because we kind of committed a coup d'etat there in the 50s.
Oh, you mean like the fall of the Shah? Yeah.
I'm not talking about the 50s. I'm talking about like last year.
Wait, last year? Where was this last year?
We've been fucking around in South America still.
Oh yeah, we're always messing around there. But that's our direct sphere of influence. It's like you would think that a place that we're connected to by a land bridge, that we would actually have more success with our, imperialism. But I guess that's not the case.
Yeah, I don't actually remember which South American country it was, but there was one that had a very recent election that basically the U.S. said, we reject the results of your election, as if the U.S. really should have any... I mean, we do. But we shouldn't.
You're talking about Venezuela.
Yeah. That sounds right.
In fairness, that guy did insist that he won because a little bird with the spirit of his predecessor came and told him so.
Look, man. Sometimes when you let other countries govern themselves, they're batshit.
Well, we did elect Donald Trump here.
Sometimes when you let this country govern itself, it's batshit.
Yeah.
I like how you just rolled into that. That was good. That was good comedy.
But the solution to that isn't to have some other country come in and try to fix it, because that has barely ever fixed anything.
I think our big problem here is...
it's usually long-term backfired on us.
I think the biggest problem in recent years is the fact that we're trying to out batshit the other batshit regimes.
Yeah. Yeah.
I'd say we failed in that because, we defeated ours. I'll note a lot of the other right-wingers are still in fucking power.
Yeah.
I mean...
Yeah, you can easily see...
Matt Gaetz hasn't resigned.
Yeah, speaking of which, I think this is a good time to shift focus to another hot spot of conflict in the globe, and that is Northern Ireland.
Oh boy!
Because
the Troubles are back.
Next in the saga of the entire British Isles wanting to have their biscuits and keep it too.
Yeah.
Yes.
Troubles are back.
Yeah.
Thanks, England.
Yeah, something that I'm kind of shocked that we haven't talked more about, but maybe that's because of the pandemic, is, Brexit. And, the effects that has been having on, the UK and...
The Union.
Yeah. Specifically, Northern Ireland, because, for the past week now...
There's been violence in Unionist... obviously, this is probably a new thing.
Is that no one is happy.
Well, one side specifically isn't happy here. So, if and I think a lot of people are probably new to the Irish situation. So in the midnight. So we gotta start here from the top here. So in the mid to late 1990s, there was this thing called the Good Friday Agreement, which ended the long, extensive, violent battle between Irish nationalists who want to reunite Northern Ireland with the main Ireland, and so-called Unionists who want to remain
Ireland, I think.
With the Republic of Ireland, exactly. And the Unionists, who are, as the name suggests, wants to align itself with the United Kingdom. The Nationalists are more of a Catholic mindset, and the Unionists are of a Protestant mindset, and that has, of course, been at the center of many, many violent situations in the 70s, 80s, early 90s, and even before that, all the way back to the early 1900s and before that.
Oh yeah, even before that, because
but
this all started because Ireland was the UK was Britain's first experiment with colonization.
Correct.
Specifically Scotland. You've got a lot of Scotch-Irish in Northern Ireland because they coalesced around the area of Ulster.
Right.
Which is what Northern Ireland's made up of. And they've always felt more of a connection with England because of that religion thing.
Right. Because, Protestant, etc. Meanwhile, the Irish nationalists, who want to realign with the Republic of Ireland, are more of a Catholic persuasion.
Ireland's been mostly Catholic since freaking St. Patrick.
Yes, exactly.
And England is rather famous for having literally said, I'm going to make my own Protestant church with divorce and hookers. Or blackjack and divorce, take your pick.
And also treating the Irish like shit and trying to exterminate them at various points.
Yeah, they do that to everyone. And also, I think they colonized Wales
I'm
first.
Henry VIII, I'm Henry VIII. I just married the widow next door. She's been married 7 times before.
They didn't suffer as much, but they certainly had their culture pretty well. Ask
the Irish about fucking Oliver Cromwell.
Let's not forget the irony of the fact that the King James Bible exists because he was trying to thumb his nose about his gay lover.
Yeah. Anyhow, but to bring it back to the current situation, in the late 1990s, the Good Friday Agreement was reached to pretty much be a settlement, stalemate, whatever you want to call it, of the.
I don't have to like you, and you don't have to like me, but we'll stop blowing each other up.
Exactly, pretty much. And unfortunately, the fact that Northern Ireland has had all of these protections and borders and whatnot in place since this Good Friday Agreement has unfortunately put it into direct and complete conflict with what the English want in telling Europe to go screw.
Yeah, fun fact, it turns out that like having a transparent border and shit and all that stuff was mostly possible because of the UK being in the EU. You know,
and also specifically the Republic of Ireland also being in the EU, and the Republic of Ireland is still in the EU. So what has happened is that Northern Ireland has always been a bone of contention throughout this entire Brexit process. And more recently, this came out with pretty much a settlement to this issue. Everybody thought it was going to be a settlement that would work, but then it turns out that the EU said we're going to put in borders in terms of the maritime borders to connect trade.
That's not quite a fair way to put it. What the British, the thing was that there has to be, because if you don't, there has to be a situation of a line where you can't trade between, because otherwise that's most of what the EU was originally like a thing where they all agreed that they can trade separately. And one of the biggest things about Brexit was that the UK, or England at least, didn't want to deal with the alleged onerous burden of all the regulations required to do that.
Yeah.
So the compromise they came up with, in order to not erect a hard border in the middle of Ireland, which definitely would have caused a resurgence of violence, was, okay, instead of having the border there, we'll put the border at the ports between the island of Ireland and the island of Great Britain. And frankly, no one still likes this, because everybody still wants there to be no border at all. But you can't have no border and also have Brexit, hence the comment about keeping your pudding or keeping your biscuits and eating them too.
Yep, and unfortunately, the Unionists do not at all buy this concept of a sea border, because, they don't want any border at all. So
when you have a sea border, the sea border is somewhat onerous because it significantly restricts trade between.
Yes. Yeah. And unfortunately,
that's the point. Yes.
Yeah, and because of that, the Unionists have decided. See that Good Friday Agreement? Rip.
Oh boy.
We don't want to. We're not going to follow
Here come the petrol bombs.
Yep. Here come the petrol bombs. Here come the stones. The throwing of stones, that is.
Colloquially known back in World War II as sticky bombs.
There you go. And if this thing continues to spiral out of control, here come the guns.
Sticky because the stuff that's burning is sticky, right?
Basically, you shove this compound inside of a sock and doused it in oil, and then stuck it to the treads of a tank.
Fun.
But the Troubles are back, and they're back in style, and it is all thanks to the English. It is all thanks to Westminster, and it's all thanks to the main two political parties. It's not just the Tories; it's also the Labour Party, who decided to say,
yes. When faced with the Tories proposing a disastrously bad political agenda that was bound one way or the other to rip the country in half, the Labour Party looked at this horrible situation that was coming for them and said, "No, we shall not stand for you being in charge of this."
Well, not quite so. They said they wanted to, quote, make Brexit work. And of course...
Right. The point was they didn't stand against it. They said, let's do it differently than that.
Yes. And unfortunately, there is no different way of doing it in the real world. It is...
Because, again, the whole thing is based on the fundamental premise of having your biscuits and eating them, too.
Yeah, it's basically, screw you, Brussels, we could do our own thing. Oh my god, we actually have this... We actually, have to pay these levels of tax? Oh my goodness, we have to, have onerous, trade? Oh my goodness.
Not being part of your trade pact doesn't mean that you'll buy our stuff that doesn't fit the regulations of your trade pact?
But oh my goodness, there's conflicts involving our currency and our economic systems? Oh my god! I didn't vote for this! Yes, you did.
That's like,
frankly, even fairly shortly after Brexit, a lot of people were saying they wouldn't. A lot of people literally said on record they wouldn't have voted for it if they thought it was going to pass.
Yeah, then they voted in Conservatives and Tories.
How the hell do you expect me to read all this fine print on this voting nonsense?
Well, also the whole fucking thing was just bullshit. The whole thing.
They did lie to them. They did lie and said there won't be any hard borders at all. There won't be any onerous
because the referendum didn't have any fucking actual mechanics in it.
Did anybody there pay any attention to one of the biggest people pushing this, Nigel Farage? I mean, this is a guy who has been lying about the national health system and on a crusade against brown people since forever.
Yeah, I mean, of course,
fear-mongering everybody in Great Britain.
Yeah, but Middle England and rural England were in the mood of saying, screw Brussels, screw Europe. I've always wanted to get at those bastards. I get to do it here.
Those damn Brussels people and their sprouts.
Yeah, those damn Europeans. But, and of course, we're going to see the consequences of this action this year. Not just in Northern Ireland, but I would also remind everybody that next month, there will be elections in Scotland, and it is very much highly likely that there is going to be, if not a majority for the Scottish National Party, a supermajority for forces in favor of independence from the United Kingdom. So, yeah, you have Scotland over here, you got Northern Ireland over here, and hey, who knows what could happen in Wales, because they've been a little bit skittish about all this too, even though they did vote to leave. But yeah, I mean, in the two places,
if I was designing a semi post whatever, not necessarily post apocalyptic, but post a near future weird realignment thing, there might quite well be a united Celts or Gaelic land or whatever, and then fucking the United Kingdoms of England and just England.
No, I think what could possibly happen is United Ireland, because that's what it would be. It would be a United Ireland because there would be a border poll, so called, and they would vote to get back in with Big Daddy Ireland, as it were.
Well, and if Scotland
wasn't thrilled about leaving either.
Without Scotland backing England's play, then there's a very high probability that the Irish would be emboldened to, just retake Northern Ireland with no fear of reprisal.
Yeah, if you're
like without a shot fired.
It would be a shot fired because there would be a border poll where the Northern Irish would vote to get back in with mainline Ireland, and it would be the majority of the Irish versus the Unionists who would be kicking and screaming.
No, okay, so if you want to know, the way that I pictured this happening is roughly that happened and Northern Ireland rejoins Ireland. Meanwhile, Scotland has had an independence initiative go through. And then Scotland wants to get back into the EU since they got dragged out by Brexit, and it's decided that the most efficient way to do that would basically to be annexed by Ireland and forming.
Except for the fact,
I don't know if this actually works. This is a fantasy scenario,
right? But except for the fact that, you know, like Hillary getting a magic 4 years if Donald Trump had successfully been removed from office, it's a bit of a pipe dream, because that's not. First of all, Brussels has said in no uncertain terms that Scotland can't just magically get back into the European Union.
Right, it doesn't. That's why that's the entire
so even if they separated.
Scotland
A lot of the onus, a lot of the impetus for trying to get out of the UK would be to try to get back into the European marketplace, which is the only real thing that they're interested in the European Union. They're not really interested in being a member of the European Union as much as they want the open marketplace. So that's a political football / time bomb that, you know, is for another discussion. But
if a country that's in the EU gains new territory,
but
that new territory is part of the EU now, isn't it?
You know what? I don't think that the Scottish National Party taking over. I don't think it's as simple as you know, separatist friendly units taking over the Scottish government, the Scottish Parliament being sufficient to actually leave the United Kingdom. There's a Everything about UK politics is always incredibly complicated.
Yeah, I mean,
I think even if they had 100% Scottish National Party across the board, that there would have to be some kind of armed conflict to actually leave the UK.
Yeah. Oh no, I'm not saying this is realistic even.
Yeah.
Oh, and of course it wouldn't just be the SNP. Of course, there's also the Green Party in Scotland that is probably going to ensure that even if the SNP don't get a majority next month, they'll get a majority via coalition. And there's also that little side party that the former head of the SNP, Alex Salmon, put together to try to get at Nicola Sturgeon over a scandal that bubbled up over the course of the last couple of months.
Oops.
But that technically would also be a part of a pro-independent supermajority in the parliament, which they're probably going to get. And, well, I mean, it's going to be fun because the Scots are going to once again tell Westminster, screw you.
I think the most likely scenario here is that if they do get a supermajority in the Scottish Parliament, that what's going to happen is they're going to put Westminster over the barrel.
They will, yeah.
They're going to use that. They're going to use that. They're going to use that leverage to upset the apple cart in Parliament.
Yeah, I mean, again, let's also keep this in mind that even if the SNP does not get a majority on their own, they're still very much going to get a majority because they're going to have Green Party help. Mm-hmm. So that's all. So keep that in mind. Even if the SNP doesn't get a majority, which they really want, but if they don't get it, then oh well, we got the Greens over here. So, yeah, I mean, so you have the two countries here that said we do not want to leave the EU, are pretty much making, you know, their presence felt here. And on top of all of that, you know, the UK has probably been lucky that they haven't gotten the full front. They haven't felt the full front of this yet because they've been kind of locked down a lot. But the moment that they get back to normal, it's going to be a rude awakening.
Oh, yeah.
And when that happens, well, England is going to have a decision to make. And also, the Labour Party is going to have a decision to make too, because they're being seen by because it looks like to me they're not standing for anything. You know, yes, we're under the ownership of under the leadership, of Mr. Corbyn. They were that far left wacko party, and now that the Corbynites are gone, it's like, well, what are you then?
I mean, they're supposed to stand for workers' rights, aren't they?
I mean, that's the general theory.
Yeah, that's
I'm not saying they will do a good job of it.
You know, I think.
Go ahead.
Well, I don't know. They've become the neoliberals of British politics.
That word.
Well, in other words, it's a negative connotation.
I mean, why do you hate that word?
I just don't like the definition. It's just, Well, yeah, it is a negative connotation.
Well, so. I mean, neoliberals are basically conservative Democrats.
Although I don't necessarily think that they're conservative Democrats. It's just more, moderate, middle of the road, but not in a way like Tony Blair.
Well, I mean, a lot of Clinton Democrats are referred to as neoliberals.
Yeah. So, but it's like.
I was making a comparison. I was making a reputational comparison, not a political comparison, as far as alignment.
Although I don't even think you could even use that with them either, because it's like, they really, based upon all of the polling that we've seen, it's like, yeah, you're different from Corbyn, but what else?
Yeah, I think the Democrats in this country ran on the "we're not that guy," and I think it had mixed results.
But at the same time, we have over time said that we're for something, we're for things,
right? And
forcefully even. That's the difference between Democrats and the Labor Party right now. It's that the Democrats have been very upfront of what they believe in, what they want, and what their vision is. Meanwhile, with Labor, it's
right, but that was an evolution over 4 years. 4 years ago, we had a hard time because they were literally the party of "we're not that guy."
4 years ago, what? In 2016?
Yeah.
Well, I mean, yeah, but that was, of course, the fact that we had come off of 2 terms of a Democratic president, and it's hard to go for a 3rd term without, repeating yourself, or at least not having anything new. I mean, that's just the fact of that. Meanwhile, with this situation, it's like, with the Labor Party, it's like, okay, you're not Corbyn, but where are you? Oh, you're okay. You're for making Brexit work, and it's not looking really good around here. But what else is there? I mean, it's just a mess. Anyhow.
Yeah. Anyway, so apparently we've got some late breaking news here, and apparently congressional Democrats are going to formally unveil legislation that will expand the Supreme Court from 9 to 13.
DOA, good night.
Yeah. This is
basically this is a piece of legislation that, you could just, anybody can write a bill and release it and unveil it. Anybody can do that. It's not going to go
performative legislation, bar none.
Yes, I mean, it happens all the time. It's not worth anything to be wound up about or whatever, what have you, because it's not going to go anywhere. As long as you know that, not even worth talking about.
No, I just feel like mocking this because court packing is not. It's not fucking happening. We don't have the power
although if you want to entertain this is essentially to put it at to add 4. It's not like it's adding 25. It's adding.
But any court packing scheme is doomed to failure.
Yeah. Well, yeah, obviously, but let's not. I don't want to call it court packing unless it's like shoving in like 10, 15 new things here. It's just adding 4 to it. But again, it's going nowhere, so it's not even worth discussing.
No, not really.
But let's just be fair here. That there's a difference between court packing and court reform here. That's what this is trying to be. It's not going to go anywhere, obviously. But let's be fair here. Let's be at least somewhat fair to this.
Well, but look, right, but how is it not packing, man? I mean, it's like if we're going to if we're talking about expanding the court by 4, then it means that our guy gets to get 1 more nomination than the last guy that we didn't like. So you know.
Although technically the concept behind this kind of thing is to make it just like the last time this court was expanded, which was based upon the number of circuit courts we had in the country, and we have 13 now. So.
Well, yeah, no, I totally get that, but it's like I don't.
I don't want to call it. I don't want to call it overt. I don't want to call it court packing if it makes sense somewhat. You know. And you know, even though again it's not going anywhere and it's DOA, this makes somewhat sense to put it specifically to match it up with the number of circuit courts that we have.
No, it just works. It just works out that it happens to be expanding the court by 4, which is one more liberal nomination.
Although technically that could become a conservative in 5 minutes, but you know.
That's true.
So it's not like it's okay. These are liberals, and that's always the way it's going to be. No, you know, but. You know, again, this is not going to go anywhere. This is not going to do anything. So it's not worth talking about. But let's at least give it somewhat level of respect here, while also noting that it's DOA. So.
Yeah. Don't invest in this.
Yeah, don't invest in it. I'm giving it respect and trying to, you know. Give it some respect, but yeah, I know it's not going anywhere. Everybody knows it's not going anywhere. So, you know. Anyhow.
Yeah. Anyway, so time to shift over to entertainment because, well, we've got some ground to cover here. Because the spring 2021 anime season is in full swing, though. It's been going on for about 2 weeks. Like, it started earlier than usual. Because My Hero Academia season 5 premiered 2 weeks ago at this point?
So I've heard.
Yeah. Well, I mean, that's the big returning headliner of the season.
Yeah.
And this is adapting the... I'm trying to, the All for One Bearer arc, or whatever they call that. I don't know the actual arc's name, but it's getting into the history of the power.
I'm trying to remember where they kind of left it off last season. It's like Kira and I binge watched it over last summer when I was ostensibly dying of COVID. And I was out of work for 3 weeks. But
it's adapting. Well, at least right now, it's adapting the end of the Pro Hero arc and the start of the joint training arc. And I don't know how long. I don't know if this season will get to the Meta Liberation Army arc. I don't think it will. But yeah, those are the arcs that we're at right now.
Yeah, last season was Overhaul arc, and the what was it? The provisional license arc, if I'm remembering correctly.
Yes.
It was the UA School Festival arc, the Remedial Course arc, and then you can basically call it the Overhaul arc.
All I know is that Lemillion's English voice, Rico Fajardo, is going to be starring in my film Survivor.
Mm-hmm. Well, yeah, get that plug in. Get that plug in, baby.
I'm actually kind of thrilled that we got some of the English cast of My Hero Academia into our production. So.
And on that note, My Hero Academia Season 5 is coming to Toonami in early May.
Yeah, May 8th.
Yeah, which it'll be replacing Attack on Titan, the final season, Part 1.
Yeah. Boy! Because, that ended.
Yeah. Oh, by the way, Attack on Titan. Apparently, the ending was terrible.
I've seen it, and I'm like, honestly, it could do worse. It could do better, but I'm like, I couldn't say it shit the Game of Thrones style, or even fucking The Promised Neverland style. You want to see something that shit the bed? Go watch The Promised Neverland season 2. Oh God!
I mean, we still have yet to top the ending of Newhart.
I'm like,
nothing will top that. Nothing will top that.
I mean, even the Seinfeld ending wasn't that bad. Seinfeld ending, in retrospect, was actually kind of brilliant. It ended as it began, a show about nothing.
But I mean, yeah. Although, the funny thing about TPN2 is that it looks like to me that it lures you in thinking, oh, okay, this is going to be very interesting, just like it was last season. And then all of a sudden, and then at the end, boom, head on the floor.
Yeah, it sets up some of the interesting stuff that happened in the manga, and then doesn't go anywhere with most of it, and then kind of has to rush to an ending, apparently.
Yeah, and it also apparently tries to do some things on its own that, they build it up and then kick the legs out from under it.
Yeah, but that can be saved for another day because, the spring season of anime has about 50 fucking titles. Woo! Because, it's like, guess what? Yep. Like this is the end result of having all your anime backlogged by COVID. You get a season where, there is a lot of stuff going on. A lot of high-profile stuff.
We gotta make up for lost time, kids.
Like other highly anticipated sequels this year or this season are SSSS Dynazeon. That is the sequel to SSSS Gridman. It is. We don't exactly know the connection to Gridman. It's apparently set in the same universe, but it's only 2 episodes in. And if you liked the Gridman season, this is definitely following in those lines. Maybe a bit more super robot-y this time around, and it's team focused. Although it's doing some weird things because it's like all disparate people. But
I'm sure there's a symbolic reason for it or something.
Right.
Or something.
Well, it's only 2 episodes in, and if you've seen SSSS Gridman, that never stops being awkward to say. But, there was a lot going on that wasn't apparent at first. Although this doesn't look like it's going for the same thing that Gridman was doing. Also, Dynazeon is standing much more on its own legs than Gridman did, because Gridman had a lot of fucking references to the original Gridman series.
Yeah.
I mean, up to like the original theme music showing up in the final episode. From the original.
In fairness, it's a banger.
Yeah.
No, I'm not disagreeing with that. I'm just saying that had a lot of references to its past. This doesn't yet. Not saying it won't, but it's definitely much more accessible than the previous one. Because apparently they're trying to build a SSSS cinematic universe. Not even joking about that.
Yeah.
Can we just call it triple S at this point?
Quadruple S.
Oh, okay. Quadruple S.
S4.
Oh, there you go.
S4.
Yeah, S4.
But, we are moving on because another big one is The World Ends With You, the animation. And yes, that is the Square Enix game of the same title.
I was just thinking that.
Yeah. This is being released now because the sequel is coming out this summer. So You know, there have been some complaints about the adaptation going at warp speed, but I'm like, it's a 12-episode anime. Like,
yeah, when it's that,
and it was not a short game.
No, it's a fucking Square Enix JRPG. Like, you're gonna get some compression.
60 hours is a blaze through.
Yes.
Yeah.
That's like, breakneck speed right there. That's manipulation of RNG to get to the ending.
You know, having seen the first episode, it captures the style of the original game fairly well. You know, if nothing else, that game had a very distinct style, not just in its clothes, but its music. Although, like, the OP had to be pulled because apparently the drummer for the band that did the music got into some fraud charges.
Ah, shit.
Yeah, so they had to pull that. Unfortunate. Let's see. We got Zombieland returning.
Zombieland Revenge, yes.
Yeah. Didn't watch season 1.
Yeah, it's the same tunes, pretty much the same, situation there. But hey, you know what? Fine.
I guess between this and Wonder Egg Priority, this is the year that anime is saying trans rights.
Yes. Well, considering that Lily led the way, I mean.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And Wonder Egg Priority is its own thing that. Ooh.
Yeah. It's a situation.
It's something that's needed to be addressed in anime for a long time, because I mean, when we try to look at these through Western sensibilities, we don't understand that Japan is in a different place from us.
Yeah,
true, but I'm like, let's just say that.
I mean, as recently as newer episodes of JoJo's Bizarre Adventure, I believe they were still throwing down the term new type.
Yeah.
That's another thing that
new half.
Yeah, new type is
new half. Yeah, sorry.
Yeah.
I knew it was one of those things starting with new, but it's a euphemism.
Yep.
I have no idea where it came from, but
still,
there's an
like researching it.
There's an explanation dating back to Poison in Final Fight.
Yep.
Anyway. Yeah, anyway, that's the thing that's not being really talked about with JoJo's Bizarre Adventure Stone Ocean, probably because a lot of people don't know about it. But, okay, so, spoilers for Stone Ocean. Jolene was supposed to have a trans girl as a love interest. They even set it up early on. Like, there is a transitioning prisoner, but that got nixed.
Right.
Probably at the behest at the editorial level.
Yeah.
And I'm gonna say, like, if the anime adaptation of Stone Ocean is retaining that, it's going to cause a lot of contention. Granted, retaining it is going to cause a lot of attention in its own right. But, JoJo acquiescing to transphobia is going to piss off a lot of people.
Yeah.
But, we'll cross that bridge when we come to it.
I just brought it up because this subject is going to become fairly near and dear to my heart very soon, because, of course, on the 23rd, Nier Replicant finally hits American shores in English, and it's a certain thing that was heavily implied in the original Nier is much more explicit in Replicant. And that is the character of Kaine.
Right.
So
let me see here.
So aside from personal reasons of the household, there is going to be a show specific reason, because I have committed to doing a Let's Play series on Nier Replicant, which will be the first time that I have really delved into the Drakengard mythos,
right,
on my programming. So it's relevant to my interests at this point.
Yeah.
No doubt, no doubt. Let's see. In the "you're really fucking reviving this" news, there's a new Battle Athletes.
Good God.
Yeah, I'm like, Battle Athletes Victory Restart. What?
Oh, okay.
Fucking, like, not dissuading this, because I enjoyed Battle Athletes back in the day. It's just, you know, it's been
You're
20 years.
You're showing your age.
I'm aware of this, but I'm like, I didn't expect Battle Athletes to ever be a thing again. I'm just kind of confused. I'm like, why? Why are you bringing back Battle Athletes?
That's like me and Aaron Hansen talking about coin-op machines and, doing a whole series on Neo Geo games on my show. Talking about upright, joystick-based coin-op machines and having people go, huh? What that?
But I mean, really, that's only like a year or two older than Shaman King.
Let's talk about Ninja Scroll.
Well, yeah,
Shaman King is also having a reboot.
Yeah, Shaman King is having a reboot, but it's not in conversation because it's in Netflix jail alongside the Godzilla series.
And also Hiromashima's third project, Eden Zero.
Yeah, so nobody's talking about these. And I'm not even joking about that. Nobody's talking about these because they're not doing, the current airing thing.
Well, technically they actually are, if you know where to find it. Arr.
Yeah.
Also, a lot of people do actually have Netflix.
Yeah,
present company may be accepted, but
I know a couple of places on the island of Togo.
Yeah, in terms of pirating, yes, that exists. But I'm talking about those who review anime. That a lot of the opinion.
They're not touching it because it's Netflix jail. Yeah.
Yeah, it's like they're not going to talk about pirated series because that's not going to be bueno for sponsors and advertisers. They do not want to be around fucking pirated material.
Yeah. That's right.
Let's see. We got Don't Toy With Me, Miss Nagataro, which is setting up to be the contentious anime of the season because it's about bullying. And that's a whole conversation to, how much of this is bullying versus how much of this is kink shaming, and I'm not even joking about this conversation.
Oh, boy.
Lord.
God damn it, Japan.
It's a much more wholesome conversation than what we're having over, say, Koikimo.
I mean, in Japan's defense, at least they're not shying away from controversial subject material.
Once again, Wonder Egg priority. But, oh God, I would need a good couple hours to talk about that series. But I'm not even joking. Like, every fucking week. Anyway, Koikimo...
Just because it's trigger warning, yes.
Oh my God! Every episode, a list of trigger warnings. Not even joking.
Yeah, boy.
Oh my.
Oh, here. This is one of two fucking series about a grown-ass man chasing a high schooler.
Not romantic, it's creepy.
That's when you show. That's when you. No, I can't even do the joke.
Yeah,
God damn it, Japan.
It's like, God damn it, human race.
Something about shoving a chicken inside of a duck inside of a turkey.
Something like that.
Yeah, I just Look, a distraction.
Yes. Yes, a shiny distraction. I guess other things. I guess on the much more wholesome side, you have Super Cub, which is a cute girls doing cute things show about motorcycles. Because
that was not the image that title invoked, and do not Google that. Do not Google that, kids.
Yeah, that is apparently a type of motorcycle, by the way.
Okay. Okay. I've spent too much time on Fur Affinity.
Cute things, motorcycles?
I've spent way too much time on Fur Affinity since the early 2000s for that term to pass muster with me.
Yep.
No doubt. No doubt.
You say that term, yes. Now I know what you're talking about.
Yep. This guy gets it.
Yep.
No further explanation forthcoming.
Yes.
Certified artist.
Yeah. It is also a motorcycle put out by Honda.
Okay.
Honda is a sponsor of this.
Okay. I'm letting it go.
Yes.
Under protest.
In what the hell? You got Odd Taxi, which is what if Taxi Cab Confessions with animals, and if it were anime? It's a lot better than that pitch would have you believe.
I've read the synopsis for Roller Coaster Sex off of Amazon, so this doesn't even faze me.
Yeah, it's weird to have a anime series be this naturalistic in its tone, setting, and its dialogue. Like people actually talk like people in this. Like if you've watched anime, even subbed, you know anime isn't really known for being realistic with its subject matter, its dialogue. In fact, this is one of the things that Hayao Miyazaki complains about with the modern anime. You know,
an entire world of pirates.
Yeah.
Everybody's a pirate. So then, who builds things and who does things? Who gives a fuck? It's cool.
Yeah.
I mean, you can be a pirate carpenter.
I'm not criticizing people who like One Piece.
Yeah.
I couldn't think of the fucking name of the show. I'm not criticizing people who like One Piece, and I'm not criticizing people who like Fairy Tail or Bleach or any other shonen manga-based show that's out there. It's just gotten a little. The hyper focus has gotten a little ridiculous.
Yeah, I mean these series are definitely a wild mix of fantastical concepts with modern mindsets.
Not to derail. Right. No, yeah.
I mean, I could also add Naruto to that list technically.
Right. Everybody's a ninja.
All of those have civilian populations.
Actually, there is some really, really big news for sci-fi fans, specifically sci-fi anime fans, and that is that Harmony Gold and Big West have finally come to an agreement to collaborate on a global Robotech / Macross franchise.
Maybe we'll see what this ends up meaning product-wise.
Well, it means that previously inaccessible Macross series will now finally be allowed in the Western world.
Good for them.
Yeah, it's like on the upside that means we could get, say, Macross 7.
Right.
On the downside that means we could get Macross Delta.
Well, I thought you were also going to say that the joke would have been more appropriate if you said on the upside we get Macross 7 and on the downside we get Macross 7. I've seen fan dubs of it. Have you? I've seen fan subs and fan dubs of it.
I've seen Macross 7. It's cool, but also you have to be in the right frame of mind, and also the OVAs are even dumber.
It's the Gundam ZZ of Macross.
No, it's not.
Oh,
I know, but I think
fighting words were thrown there.
Are you claiming that Double Zeta Gundam? I mean, Double Zeta Gundam is also dumb, but it's a different flavor of dumb.
Yeah,
I feel like hands have been thrown here. I feel like hands have been thrown here.
But anyway, it's worth noting that I don't know if this is going to instantly make any of the music licensing issues go away, because that was definitely part of the problem with 7.
That's probably a separate issue.
I mean, ever since Harmony Gold wrested control of the franchise back in 1998 from Revel, and when their trademark expired. Plus, there was also the issues in the early 2000s of them basically dropping C&Ds on literally every other business in the industry because of the whole DC thing over Robotech and Academy Comics and Antarctic Press and anybody else who tried to get in on the action. You know, I mean, that's a whole episode all by itself. It's just talking about Macross and Harmony Gold and Robotech. But the short version is that we have a sliver of hope that there will be peace in our times on this regard.
I suppose. Yeah, I suppose on that note, we should wrap up for the weekend for the season.
Indeed. So, once again, to reiterate, this is, of course, our season finale. We'll be back in 3 weeks' time on the 5th of May at Last Newsdesk on the Left for a new season of shenanigans. But in the meantime, Season 5 of Up Late with Mace is going on Plex Storm. And, of course, the videos on demand are available on... Is it dusty in here? But we've already done 2 episodes of it. And, of course, next week, Tuesday, 9 p.m. Pacific Standard Time, we will be doing a review of Rance Magnum. So join me and Adam on the Plexstorm channel, plexstorm.com/stream/Mace Palladino for the live version. And of course, there will be a link in the chat for the Corn Flub edition. In case you miss the live broadcast, you will still be able to get video on demand. And of course, my patrons will always get first crack at that link. But until then, I thank everybody for coming out and making this a wonderful season for us here on Twitch, and of course the original 14 episodes on YouTube. So if you want to complete your collection of Last Newsdesk on the Left, all the episodes are available across my 2 streaming platforms. And thanks for watching. Stay safe out there, kids. We'll see you next season.
Get masked. Stay masked, get vaccinated, kids.